Welcome to Get Rich Education. I'm your host, Keith Weinhold. Your property may never appreciate, and even if you never profit from the other 4 ways real estate pays you, I tell you how you can still be a profiteer if you have a loan and a great guest stops by with perspective on passive income versus active income, all today on Get Rich Education.
Are you looking for a roadmap to financial freedom? If so, we have a solution for you. Norada Real Estate is offering a limited number of free strategy sessions to help you get out of the rat race. Learn how you can create wealth and build monthly passive income. To set up a time with one of our knowledgeable investment counselors, simply go to noradarealestate.com. That's NORADA realestate.com.
For an income property investor like you that needs an income property loan, go to Ridge Lending Group. And over the years, you've heard owner Chaley Ridge generously give her time to you right here on the show as a guest. Ridge provides investment property loans in almost every U.S. state, and you're going to find out how they've helped more Americans realize their dreams of financial freedom through real estate than any other mortgage lender in the entire nation when you get started at ridgelendinggroup.com. Get Rich Education is brought to you by Ridge Lending Group, Producers Wealth, Norada Real Estate, and Total Control Financial.
You're listening to the show that has created more passive income for people than nearly any show in the world. This is the powerful Get Rich Education.
Welcome to GRE, from Toronto, Ontario to Ontario, California, and across 188 nations worldwide. I'm Keith Weinhold, and this is Get Rich Education. And happy Labor Day in the USA. Let's talk about your return on investment. The ROI of a basketball to LeBron is $1 billion. The ROI of a basketball to Kevin Durant might be $500 million. Well, what's the ROI of a basketball to me? It is nothing. It is absolutely nothing. I don't know how to make money with a basketball. You are probably in the same boat as me because I can't even dunk on a 10-foot hoop, and my jumper would get shut down if Kevin Durant were guarding me. Well, what's the ROI of real estate to you and I then? It is substantial. It might even be $1 billion because, like LeBron knows how to build wealth with a basketball, we know how to build wealth with real estate. Luckily, unlike a few gifted people that can make trillions with the basketball, most anyone can do it with real estate. You already know that when you're a savvy investor, you've got leverage amplifying your wealth when you've got loans on a cash flowing property. Well, let me tell you about another way that you're using the basketball or leverage real estate, as it might be, for another win that you may have never considered before. And look, it really pays for you to know more than the general population about how money fundamentals work. And that's because compared to your mutual fund investing coworker, you're just dealing with bigger dollar amounts in real estate than they are. So understand this. Your property might never appreciate in value. And let's just say that it also, just hypothetically here, never provided you with income and never provides you with a tax benefit. And even if it never provided you with tenant loan pay down, or even if you never derived this inflation hedging tailwind from your loan amount. So see, what I tried to do there is take away all 5 ways that real estate investing pays you. And even though you know you're still going to get most or all of them, well, look, even if you took those 5 away, hypothetically, or deleted them in actuality, you could still benefit in a way that you're not thinking about. Well, how could that possibly be true? Well, it's kind of part and parcel with appreciation. See, you might be confusing property appreciation with property inflation. Yes, inflation, the rate at which the purchasing power of your dollar, peso, or yen declines annually. And I was just writing about this to our Get Rich Education newsletter subscribers. Say that you added a blue-colored Cleveland rental home to your portfolio 1 year ago, and you paid $100,000 for it just last year. Now, today, a year later, it's worth $103,000. So it appears to you that it has appreciated $3,000. You might even tell your friend, hey, my property went up in value. But it didn't. It didn't at all. That's because the rate of inflation in our example is 3%. Therefore, your blue Cleveland's property price changed, but its value stayed the same. It could fetch 3% more dollars, but each dollar is worth 3% less, and this reflects 3% inflation, not appreciation. Okay, well, so what? Kind of boring, right? All else being equal, it appears that you have a wash here. You've broken even. Well, now here's the twist. Say that you had put a 25% down payment on the property last year when you purchased it and you borrowed the other 75% from the bank. So then your skin in the game, or your equity at purchase, just to keep things simple, was $25,000. Now it's $28,000. That's a 12% return on your equity because it's your $3,000 gain divided by your $25K of equity. Now, don't confuse return on equity with return from equity. Return from equity is always zero. So you might have thought you were merely treading financial water, but you are now more affluent. Debtors win again. You got a 12% return on your money. So you did not leverage appreciation in this case. What you really just achieved is that you just leveraged inflation. Because you have that loan on the property, you have, in fact, 4x'd inflation. That's because despite the 3% inflation, you've got a 12% gain. And what exactly led to your greater affluence here? Yes, it is that $75,000 that you borrowed from the bank. That's what you leveraged. So in this simplified example, your property became no more valuable. It merely takes more dollars to buy it. That's why price and value are different. In fact, Warren Buffett is the one that said, price is what you pay, value is what you get. So see, in this case, what you get and what you have didn't change. Your blue-colored Cleveland home, it still sleeps 3 people, has 2 bathrooms, a central vacuuming system. It still has a yard that's a little bit too steep for playing wiffle ball in, and the kitchen still has a built-in microwave just like it did last year. This property is not any closer to employment centers. Its utility did not change. Its intrinsic value remained stable. It is not worth any more in real dollars. It takes 3% more nominal dollars to buy it today. Nominal means in name only. So my point is that if you have a loan, you don't ever need your property to appreciate, yet you can still prosper from leverage, leveraged inflation to be exact. Now, you already know that inflation helps you out 2 other ways because it also erodes away your loan debt and it also boosts your cash flow at the same time, but we're not talking about that here. Now, think about this instead. Okay, so far we've discussed the past and the present in this example with you and your blue Cleveland rental home. Let's take this example forward into the future now. Let's say that next year it would take 8% more dollars to buy your Cleveland rental. Well, that 8% could be made up of 5% appreciation and 3% inflation. And because inflation is local and it is complex, you won't actually know how much of your 8% price gain came from appreciation and how much came from inflation. Now, this past summer, the U.S. hit its highest reported inflation rate in about 6 years, and that is good for you and I when we're debtors. But of course, the flip side of that is that higher inflation can cause the Fed to raise interest rates in order to help keep inflation dampened down, because higher interest rates are an impediment to borrowing, and that helps keep business activity from overheating. But in any case, I just hope that this simple example with a Cleveland rental home helped you better understand appreciation versus inflation, and how appreciation is not even necessary at all for you to benefit from leverage. So that's why your property could never appreciate in value. And just to isolate that and keep it simple here, let's just say that you even somehow got zero benefit from all the other ways you're paid. Well, you still have a positive force working for you. When you have a loan on a property, inflation is your friend. If you have no loan, that means you have no benefit this way either. So inflation actually erodes the value of both your equity and your debt. In fact, inflation transfers wealth from lenders to borrowers. So I want to be on the debt side of this equation, not the equity side. Again, inflation transfers wealth from lenders to borrowers. Inflation also transfers wealth from older people to younger people as well. Now, why would inflation transfer wealth from old to young? That's because older people have more assets and younger people have more debt. So when you're a leveraged cash flowing real estate investor, you can catch yourself kind of thinking and saying these things that just general, uninitiated, let's be scarce society, they would deem as loony things. You're actually saying and thinking things like, I want more inflation. I want more debt. And some people are thinking, dude, are you nuts? To them, you might look like a replete heretic. Inflation and debt make most people poorer, but understanding inflation and debt and using them as tools, just like LeBron uses a basketball, make us wealthy. Inflation makes most people poor. You know, I like to say that taxation is not adjusted for inflation either. And what do I mean by that? Well, if the stock investor's $100 stock increases after a year up to $105 in share price, but inflation was also 5%, well, that stock investor, they didn't even tread water. Their prosperity has, in fact, just been diminished because they're still taxed on that 5% gain. Their prosperity has been diminished. Taxation is not adjusted for inflation. That is pretty harsh. You've got to get out there and crush inflation. Real estate does that with all the ways that you are paid. Well, coming up on the show down the road here, we've got some great guests like Fox News and CNN television personality Kristen Tate and Rich Dad real estate advisor Ken McElroy's fourth Get Rich Education appearance upcoming here later. We're also going to be talking down the road about a diamond in the Rust Belt. That is Cleveland, Ohio. I'm going to be having a lot more activity in Cleveland. Our newsletter subscribers know that I sent you details on a 44-unit apartment building for sale there in Cleveland recently. Now, for turnkey real estate in Cleveland, where they have these rent-to-price ratios of about $800 rent on a $70,000 property in decent neighborhoods, where they do actually have property available today, I don't expect that to last long, you can get a jump on that by visiting GetRichEducation.com/Cleveland. That's GetRichEducation.com/Cleveland. Well, I'd like to bring in a savvy real estate investor and industry influencer, Matt, here, and get his perspective on flipping versus buy and hold real estate, active income versus passive income, and a lot more. We'll be back in less than 90 seconds together. This is Get Rich Education. Finally, Total Control Financial gives you checkbook control of your 401k and IRA money to invest in real estate. It's time to get your retirement money into your own checking account, but you've got to avoid the little-known tax that you'll pay with any self-directed IRA. Instead, it's time for the QRP. Learn more and get a copy of the QRP book by text messaging the letters QRP to 72000. That's text QRP to 72,000. MC Laubscher is the host of the top-rated business and investing podcast, Cash Flow Ninja, and also the president of Producers Wealth. Producers Wealth assists people in creating, protecting, and perpetually multiplying wealth in any economy through creating processes that help them increase their production, provide them with liquidity, passive income generators, and opportunities for enormous growth. Learn more about their time-tested and proven systems at yourownbankingsystem.com.
Hey, this is Dr. Buck Joffrey, host of Wealth Formula Podcast. You are listening to the powerful Get Rich Education with Keith Weinhold. Don't quit your daydream.
Today's guest went from a life of getting paid $7 an hour bagging groceries to a seven-figure per year real estate investor and entrepreneur. He's a Marine Corps Desert Storm veteran who enjoyed 15 successful years in the music business as a record producer and label owner. And when the digital download killed the record store, he found virtually everything that he had built become obsolete in just a matter of months. And the demise of his music business was swift and unforgiving to the point that he was forced to start life over personally and professionally from square one at the age of 34. And he sure did have a humbling transition. And in life, he found the most unlikely of mentors, his grocery store manager. He was there bagging groceries after all. His grocery store manager shared with him the wisdom that real estate is the final frontier where the average person has a legitimate shot at creating real wealth. He embraced it. He ran with it, and he has never looked back. He's now built a cash flowing real estate portfolio of more than 100 units over the last 10 years. He's enjoying his financial independence. He keeps building his portfolio, and he's discovered a new passion for creating systems and showing others how to replicate his results. Welcome to Get Rich Education, Matt Theriault.
Hey, thanks, Keith. Thanks for having me.
Hey, it's so good to have you here. So, Matt, you had to build a real estate investing philosophy and business from scratch after you had bottomed out. Just tell us about that transition.
The context, I think, is kind of important because when I came from the music industry, like I made a lot of money, but I was really only as successful as my last release. So kind of akin to, flipping properties. Like you make money, but then now you got to go find the next deal, right? And so when the supply runs out or the demand runs out for what you do, I guess, when people stopped buying compact discs in music stores and they started downloading and that whole revenue stream just disappeared on me. And yeah, I got knocked on my butt at age 34. I was bagging groceries and I had to start over. So I knew that I was going to be looking for something different. I really missed the money. I really missed the lifestyle. I didn't know how to do anything else. So I knew I had to learn something new. So I just wanted to go learn whatever was going to give me the best shot at establishing myself in a way where it would last forever, as literal as we can get for forever. We know nothing's forever, but yeah, that grocery store manager turned me onto that little book. You've probably never heard of it, called Rich Dad, Poor Dad. But it's a good book. You should check it out. And that just introduced me to the whole concept of passive income. I mean, I speak English. I know what passive means. I know what income means, but I never thought of it as a formula, to get your passive monthly income to exceed your monthly expenses. And that essentially is what creates freedom. It might not create wealth, but it creates freedom, or not initially wealth. But that was what my goal was set, or my eyes were set on. And I went and pursued it.
Well, it's interesting. When you were in the music business, you told me that you only felt as successful as your last release. And that is kind of akin to what flippers do. Now, flipping might be worth it, but flippers just kind of have spending money, whereas investors build real wealth. So flippers kind of get a quick pool of income that might quickly run out, but investors build a long-term, long-running stream of income. So you sort of had that philosophy to learn as well.
That was the lesson I learned in the music business, and I was not going to make that same mistake in real estate.
Did you start with flipping, and how did you get into buy and hold real estate investing?
When I got started, like the financial resources were limited. After losing my record label, I filed bankruptcy. I got divorced, and so the credit score wasn't a resource for me. So the educational program that I made this large investment in, they had one specific course called Creative Acquisition Strategies. And that's the one that was most appealing to me because I felt like I didn't have the conventional resources, so I had to be creative. And I started, acquiring property through negotiating seller financing, negotiating terms, and using other people's money and just getting very creative with how I was able to leverage and take control of property. That's how I started.
Depending on what lens you look through, it can actually be an advantage when you don't have many resources, when you don't have money, and when you don't have a credit score.
That's absolutely true. I think it's a huge advantage. Might not feel like it in the beginning. One thing I notice is after working with so many different types of people in different capacities inside of real estate, I've noticed those that have money, they spend it. And those that don't have money, they go out and find better deals. So I think if you're forced to find better deals, you become a better real estate investor. And when you start making money, you still are so accustomed to finding those deals creatively that you use very little of it. So you manage to keep a lot more of it.
Tell us about finding deals creatively.
I don't know if how I find them is so creative. I guess how I acquire them is creative. But, we do a
Okay.
lot of the traditional lead generation strategies of direct mail and we're really big online right now. We've got amazing Facebook strategies that are working for us really well, pay per click. So anything that we can go ahead and attract a distressed property owner to call us is what we do as far as lead generation.
From a lot of perspectives, platforms like Facebook and Instagram, even though a lot of people have gotten used to them, they're still largely underpriced from a perspective of television ads and terrestrial radio ads and traditional media. So tell us more about reaching people and finding deals through places like Facebook.
You're looking for people that find themselves in some sort of distress, whether it's property distress or financial distress or personal distress. So you're looking for people essentially with problems. So through Facebook, through pay-per-click or Google, through all the various online platforms, you can start segmenting audiences or putting types of content out there that have certain audiences actually raise their hand and identify themselves. And the way that we do that is we start promoting solutions to the specific problems that we're looking for. And you're right, you can reach a whole lot more people via the online methods than you can, traditional TV and radio.
To those who've never bought a Facebook ad, you can specifically target your demographic. You can say you're aiming for ages 22 to 58 with people that have a like on Robert Kiyosaki and live in the United States and Canada. It is target marketing and it's underpriced.
Indeed.
So, Matt, coming from where you came from, you really developed quite a philosophy on just how one can retire young. And in a minute, we're going to talk about if you're not so young, you need to make up lost time. But from reading Rich Dad and coming from where you came from with having to start all over again, what are your thoughts on how one can retire young? And let me just jump in and say, retire is I think a word that's kind of had its meaning change somewhat over time. But can you speak to that?
Yeah, retirement, I think, is kind of a antiquated word. I think it's just creating the option in your life to whether you can work or not. So even if you continue to work, if you have the option to stop working because you don't like what you're doing, I kind of put that in the group of retirement. I think when we talk about that, we have to look at how most people go about it. And I think the most simplest way I can put that is most people will go to work and make these big sacrifices to save a giant pile of money. And the goal being, let's get that pile of money tall enough to where it will spin off eventually a residual income that will support the lifestyle that you want. And for most people, whether that's through a job or it's flipping properties or being an entrepreneur, that's a 40 to 50 year plan for most people. And if you look at the Department of Health and Human Services statistics, today's 65-year-olds, that plan is not working for 95% of the population. And it's a 40 to 50 year plan to even discover whether it's going to work for you or not. So rather than focusing on creating this pile to create the stream of money, just kind of flip the equation is how we've done it over here is let's focus on building the stream of money first, get it to a point where it supports your lifestyle, continue to build the stream and allow the excess to build the pile. That way you're not putting life off for some far distant place down the road when your best years are behind you. But you can actually live life now and live life later by just kind of pursuing the stream of income before the pile.
Living life certainly beats deferring life. And, it's so interesting with traditional retirement planning. Everyone is trying to accumulate the biggest lump that they can. And with a 401k, for example, your contributions don't even begin until between age 59 and a half and 70 and a half. but everyone is trying to accumulate that lump and then figuring out what kind of stream that lump will be converted into. Well, instead, yeah, just start building up the stream now, and you won't have to project and you won't have to guess, and you're enjoying a stream of income all of your life so that you don't need to defer life. One thought that I have about retirement, Matt, is I think that's somewhat analogous with financial freedom. Financial freedom meaning you can do whatever you want to do, whoever you want to do it with, whenever you want to do it. When I hear the word retire, I often think that's the chance when you get to be yourself. You can actually do what you want to do. And a lot of people say that the more money one gets, that doesn't make them a better person or a worse person. That really just makes you more of who you are. I would say that the same thing is true for more time. More time is going to make you more of what you are, and you can truly be yourself when you're not going through some absurd charade at work and toting some company line and you can't even say what you want to say, or you just finished a task and you still got 14 minutes left in the workday, so you just screw around on Amazon or Zappos or ESPN the rest of the day and kind of hide what you're doing on your computer so your employer won't see you. Well, that's not being yourself, because you wouldn't naturally do that. You have desperately got to try to want to be yourself in this one life of yours. That's what I think of retirement as.
Very much so.
But, Matt, a lot of people just don't wake up to that realization until later. I think when people get a job when they're young, they're just happy to be making money. They're not thinking about significance or any of these other things. But if someone wakes up to this and they want to build passive income from real estate and kind of make up for lost time financially in their life because they didn't read Rich Dad and they didn't think about streams of income, what's a way that a person can really make up for lost time?
The difference between building that pile to create that stream, that's a 40-year plan. To build the stream to create the pile, that can be as fast as a 4-year plan in a very conservative manner. So if you find yourself like you've blown off those first 20 years of your life and you haven't put your money away in your 401k and you're a little bit concerned that compound interest might not be working in your favor until, you're in your 80s, you can make considerable strides towards creating that freedom just by shifting your mindset from stop focusing on piles of cash and start focusing on creating streams of cash.
When someone thinks about making up for lost time financially, I think they need to evaluate where they're at and maybe keep score. So, Matt, what would you tell someone that kind of wakes up and thinks, yeah, my income's actually pretty decent, but you know what? When I look at it, almost all of my income is active income and little or none of it is passive income. What are some of the ways that people can shift their mindset and convert active income activities into passive income activities?
You're very much right on the money when you say it's a shift in mindset.
Yeah.
I guess the analysis would be to first look at what are you doing with the money that you are making and how much of it could you afford to start transitioning that active income into passive income. There's all different types of ways to do it. I mean, real estate's not the only way. You can start a business if you wanted to. There's all sorts of options of online businesses that can be essentially automated. There's offline businesses like your laundromats or your coin-operated car washes, or, you could write a hit song, write a best-selling book, whatever it may be. All of those, I think, though, the odds are really very much against you. If you look at the statistics, the best place, the final frontier, as I say, that the average person has a shot at creating real wealth is through real estate. So it's a matter of starting to stop buying things and start buying assets that'll actually pay you long after you stopped working for your money.
So give us an example of that. We don't want to defer life, but yet there's sort of a balance, because if we save money and, boy, I'm going to use a word I even dislike, but even budget a little bit in the beginning in order to get a down payment for real estate, are we really deferring life then? Or is there a faster way around building up down payments for buy and hold real estate?
Yeah, it's going to take a little bit of patience, but not as much patience as people think. And here's what I mean. Every day out here in my office, we're faced with a decision. Do we flip this property and put $30,000 in our pocket, or do we hold on to it for $300 a month? And just by being humans, and I mean, $30,000, that's a lot of money to most people in this world. And that could do a lot. That can make a big impact and solve a lot of problems immediately in people's lives. And most people will take that pile of cash, that $30,000 of cash, because it feels good and it feels like you're prospering, and maybe you've never seen that money before ever in your life. And on the contrary, like that $300 a month is probably not going to move the needle too much in most people's lives. So people will continue to take that giant stack of cash. And by going down that road, I mean, say you $30,000 flip, if you wanted to create $5,000 a month of passive income, and let's say based on current financial planners, what they say, what you can expect in retirement is a return of 4 to 5% on whatever you've saved.
Yeah.
Let's just be conservative. We'll just say 4%. I don't know where you really get that with ultimate conservativeness is today, but let's say it's 4%. To create $5,000 a month of passive income, you need $1.5 million. You have to save $1.5 million. So if you're flipping houses for $30,000 a piece, that's 50 properties you have to flip. And you can't spend any of that along the way either. So it's 30 or 50 properties you have to flip. But at that $300 a month, that's only 17 properties you'd have to hold. So it's the difference between working really hard at 50 properties or working hard but not as long for 17. That's the difference between, if you did say 4 a year flips or 4 buy and holds, that's the difference between 12 years and 4.5 years. That's where you might have to exercise a little patience for a couple years, but it's like you're going after what you want most and sacrificing what you want right now.
Gosh, that is a great way to think about it and sort of begin with the end in mind and be strategic. But when it comes to buy and hold real estate investing, which is something that we favor here, and there's nothing wrong with flipping, but over the long term, flipping is a job and buy and hold isn't. We often talk here about how the property is not nearly the most important thing. There are other things that are even more important than the property when you think about your strategy as a long-term buy and hold real estate investor. What do you want? Do you want cash flow? Do you want appreciation? Do you want tax advantages? What do you want the property to do for you? And then the market and the team are the next most important things before the property. And you credit a lot of your success to the due diligence that you do on your real estate team, even more so than the market and the properties themselves. So tell us about vetting the team and the importance of that and just how you go about that.
I do give a lot of credit to my success to my team, but I also give a lot of my losses to the people that I've worked with as well. I think real estate is the highest reward, lowest risk investment out there. The people is what inserts the risk. Real estate is safe. The people are risky. And if you want a cash flowing portfolio, it takes people to manage that. It's people that cause that to perform, not the market so much and not the property itself, but more so the people that live in it and the people that manage the people that live in it and manage the property for you. So I think a great team in a mediocre market can be a fantastic market. A bad team in the best market in the country can be a disaster for people. People ask us how we pick our markets. We have a turnkey operation here. We're in 10 different markets, and people ask frequently, why did you choose those 10 markets? And my answer is always the same, because that's where I have my 10 best relationships. And because at the end of the day, it's those relationships that are going to cause those properties to perform.
Yeah, that's a great answer. There are times when I've characterized the market is more important than the team, but those are probably the two criteria that are interchangeable. I've characterized the market as more important than the team a lot of times because if you have a problem with the property, it's often easier to change managers than it is to change the market that you're in.
Yeah, if you've got another competent manager to go to, for sure. But at the end of the day, if you don't have management or it's all bad management, I mean, there's a couple markets we just don't go into anymore. We've been through every single property manager in those metropolitans, and we're done. The numbers look good on paper for those markets, but there's no one that can get them to perform. So that's why I think the team's probably a little bit more important. But at the end of the day, if your tenants don't have jobs and can't pay their rent, then that trumps it too.
We're talking about markets and teams, and a lot of people overlook this stuff. They're not strategic. They get all emotional about a property. They might only buy properties in their own geographic market, and they don't realize that there are systems and turnkey real estate investing opportunities in other markets. So, Matt, I'd like to get your opinion when it comes down to an individual investor, and we're just talking about domestic residential property. What do you think the right number or the right range of number of markets is to be in? Because if you're in too few, you might not be very well diversified. But if you're in too many, then you're getting monthly property manager statements an awful lot. And you can really only learn so many markets. So what do you think the sweet spot is for most individual investors that are still working a day job and just want to keep tabs on a few markets and be diversified? What are your thoughts on that prime market number?
I think that answer is going to be different from everybody in their situation. I think if you get too much of a presence in any one market to where if something happened to that market, it would be financially devastating to you, then I think it's time to diversify. I also think people have different goals and have different ideas of how big they want their portfolio to be. Some people want their investment portfolio to be solely real estate. Some people just want real estate mixed in, and some people just want a couple to kind of be reasonably diversified with their assets. I don't know if there's a sweet spot, like a specific number. I don't think there's a universal answer for that. At least I don't know of one.
Yeah, I don't either. I tend to think 3 or 4 are pretty good numbers. And I'd probably rather be in 5 markets than 2 different markets. But if you really get into many more than 5, yeah, then it's not quite as passive as you'd want it to be. You're looking at property manager statements and spinning plates and communicating with more people than you want to potentially. But yeah, it definitely depends on how one's inclined and how much time one really wants to devote to all this. Any other thoughts about becoming a passive real estate investor and investing for those streams rather than a big chunk?
Make sure that you're doing it. Because if you look at the statistics, you just don't have a shot at any sort of financial freedom unless you incorporate real estate into your portfolio in some shape, form, or fashion. There are certainly exceptions out there, and you might even be able to name a person or name someone, but the statistics certainly show otherwise. So just kind of consider, do you want to bank your future on an exception, or do you want to bank your future on the statistics and put those percentages and those odds in your favor? And when you start looking at decisions like, do I take $30,000 worth of cash or $300 a month of passive income? Just know the more of those piles that you take, more of those stacks of $30,000, it feels good, but just understand you're really slowing yourself down if financial freedom is where you want to be. Have a little bit of patience with those $300 a month things. And, after 3-4 years, you're going to be like, whew, glad I did that. Because after 3-4 years of flipping those houses, you're nowhere closer. You're absolutely nowhere closer. I mean, if you think about it right now, if you look back 20 years ago, where would you be off? Would you be better off today if you flipped 20 houses 20 years ago, or if you bought 20 houses and you still own those houses today? It's a pretty clear answer.
No doubt about it. And besides the figures that you're bringing up, if you flip property, you've just got a chunk that you just took in. And if you buy and hold property, you've got both a stream and a chunk, because typically you're leveraged often at 4 or 5 to 1. So you're going to get that chunk down the road in addition to your income stream when you're a strategic long-term buy and hold real estate investor rather than a flipper. And Matt, I never met any person, tell me if you have, that's ever become wealthy solely by investing through stocks, bonds, mutual funds, ETFs, and the like. Now, I do know wealthy people that have invested their money in stocks. They might have increased their existing wealth by a little bit. But I know a number of people in real estate, myself included, that have had their financial life completely transformed and have achieved financial freedom through real estate. But I've never learned anyone at all that's done that through stocks.
I do know some early investors in Netflix and Facebook that have done pretty darn well for themselves.
Okay. And how common do you think that is?
It's a gamble. It's a crapshoot. It's something you have no control over. It's why I would still prefer real estate, because you can actually manage it, control it. And based on the concept of supply and demand in our society right now, our current situation, it's very predictable. And as long as you, in my opinion, manage the people, that real estate, you can't lose.
Yeah, I know of a couple early investors in Twitter and in Netflix that really made a lot of money, but they've really made more of their money by being an entrepreneur in their own business first.
Yeah. And the other thing about real estate, it'll never be worth zero.
Right.
And, you can't say that about stocks. And you have no idea what's going on behind the doors of companies. And a few years ago, they were debating, I'm not too big on world economics, but I remember there was this one story I heard where the president of Greece, or the prime minister of Greece, he decided he didn't want to participate in some sort of monetary something philosophy. The stock market just plummeted just because he didn't want to be involved. And the next day he changed his mind and the stock market went right back up. I mean, how can you bank your future on that type of whimsical, volatile environment? Real estate, you don't have that. As long as you're investing for cash flow, you're good.
Yeah, I don't know how you can bank your future on that, but a lot of people tend to do it, and it sure doesn't make a lot of sense. Well, Matt, just tell us a bit more about what you do in your business and then how someone can learn more about you.
We practice what we preach over here. We've got a real estate fund, the Ebook Wealth Fund, which is the umbrella of which we run all of our own investing and transactions underneath. And then we have an educational platform that shows people how to do what we do. And pretty much if you're listening to the podcast, you can find ours. It's Epic Real Estate Investing. Anywhere you find a podcast, you can find ours there. That'd probably be the best way to find us.
Yeah, I really suggest checking that out. Matt has a lot of experience and a really great voice and a way to deliver that to you. Matt Theriault, thanks so much for coming on to Get Rich Education.
Thanks again, Keith.
I am leaving for Belize tomorrow night. I hope that you're one of the people I'm meeting there this weekend for our Get Rich Education Caribbean Investor Meetup. That rare opportunity for you to have cash flow and lifestyle investing all in one in idyllic Placencia, Belize. And gosh, that's a long flight for me. Looking farther down the road, November 1st to 4th, a number of you told me that you'll be there for our meet and greet at the New Orleans Investment Conference in New Orleans, Louisiana, where I look forward to meeting you in person, and we'll determine which one of those days that's going to be. Like Matt and I discussed at the end of our chat there, you have got to act. You can't make any money from the property that you don't own. And look, nearly the same thing applies whether you have some trepidation with just getting started with your first property in real estate investing, or whether you've got equity in a duplex and you know that it's best for you to 1031 exchange it into a fourplex, but you haven't tackled your first tax-deferred exchange yet. Or if you're looking to buy something even bigger than you ever have before, you have got to act if you think it makes sense. At one time in your life, you were scared to ride a bike. You were scared to kiss the girl or boy. You were scared to jump into the pool for the first time. And now you look back to when you were younger and think, gosh, I stood at the edge of the pool for 15 minutes until I actually finally jumped in. How ridiculous was that? You know what's guided me in real estate investing and expansion and acquisition decisions if things were split like 50-50 and they seem to be like half pros and half cons and it all just balanced out? It's that go and do beats wait and see. Do it. And you know what? That gets even more true as your life just keeps rolling on. And you know why that is? It's because your time becomes more valuable as you age because you have less of it left. I'm your host, Keith Weinhold. Until next week, when I'll be back to help you build your wealth, don't quit your daydream.
Nothing on this show should be considered specific, personal, or professional advice. Please consult an appropriate tax, legal, real estate, financial, or business professional for individualized advice. Opinions of guests are their own. Information is not guaranteed. All investment strategies have the potential for profit or loss. The host is operating on behalf of Get Rich Education, LLC exclusively.
Ranked by Forbes as one of the fastest growing cities, Orlando, Florida has a big and diverse economy, yet still features affordable rental properties that cash flow. Our boots on the ground turnkey provider, Greg Bond, wrote a special report to help you discover the amazing market of Orlando. Request your free copy today. Visit GetRichEducation.com/Orlando. That's GetRichEducation.com/Orlando.
The preceding program was brought to you by your home for wealth building, GetRichEducation.com.